know.
That's good for you. Even with your little puny water bottle.
Good evening. I will now call to order the regular city council meeting of May 22nd, 2023. Members of the public are invited to attend in-person meetings in council chambers. Public access to the meeting is also available by telephone by using the call-in numbers posted on the meeting agenda. Meetings are broadcast on Channel 8 for Comcast and Xfinity subscribers and on the city's YouTube channel online. Joanna, welcome back. Will you call the roll, please?
Thank you. Mayor Leidy,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Luqman Haramasa,
Here.
Councilmember Long,
Here.
Councilmember Jaramillo, Councilmember Kondo,
Here.
Councilmember Burns,
Here.
Councilmember Goff,
Here.
Councilmember Brown,
Here.
and Councilmember Walker will be absent.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Manager Guyer, are there any responses to resident inquiry?
Yes, one this evening. I'd like to share some information with council and the community regarding an update on our safety sensitive zone program. The signage for this program is installed. The traffic unit through the police department will begin enforcement within these zones on June 1st. The postcard that we committed to mailing out is in the process of being mailed out to notify residents of these zones and then information about them. The other piece related to this new effort is that we committed to council in providing an update, a monthly report on the activities that happen within the safety sensitive zones, not just how many citations were issued, because a big piece of this effort is to have the enforcement being done, which may not directly result in speeding tickets or moving violations. So Deputy Chief's working on that report template, and with the launch of the enforcement of the zones in June, we likely won't have a first report until late July, August, so you can expect that then. I do want to share some statistics that are included in the April municipal court report that I think residents will find interesting and appreciate. The top 3 most common citations that went through the court system in April included speeding 10 to 19 miles over the speed limit. 145 citations were issued in April. Careless driving consisted of 37 citations, and then 30 citations were written for no insurance. So I share these statistics to reinforce to our community that we are doing what we can from a police department perspective, utilizing the traffic unit and officers on patrol to make sure that we're addressing speeding in our residential areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda? No? Okay. All right, if council would join me down front, we have a couple proclamations and a presentation.
Go ahead. Yeah. My special chair.
All right, good evening. So we're going to start with a proclamation for Public Works Week. So I would like to invite a few of our special guests to come down. So Rob Weber, Operations Manager, Jason Hensel, Utilities Operations Manager, Tamara Moon, Environmental Manager, and Daniel Martinez, the Senior Engineer. Okay. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the city of North Glen. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our residents. And whereas it is in the public interest for the residents, civic leaders, and children in the city of North Glen to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2023 marks the 63rd annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association, Canadian Public Works Association. And whereas the North Glen Public Works Department has received full accreditation by the American Public Works Association and is only the 9th agency in Colorado to achieve accreditation. Now, therefore, I, Meredith Leidy, Mayor of the City of North Glen, Colorado, do hereby proclaim the week of May 21st through 27th, 2023 as National Public Works Week in the City of North Glen, and urge all residents to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Dated at North Glen, Colorado, this 22nd day of May, 2023. So, who would like to say a few more words?
I'm the designated talker tonight. I want to thank Mayor Leidy and City Council for this proclamation this evening. We're very proud to be standing here representing all of this Public Works Department staff, and just want residents to know how proud we are to do kind of that hidden job that most people don't necessarily see, where our work isn't flashy, but it's super important, and we're very proud to provide such great services to our residents. And then I also want to give a shameless plug for our Public Works Open House tomorrow night. It starts at 3:00 p.m. at the Maintenance and Operations Facility on Claude Court. So, thank you.
Oh, you're a pro. He needs to stay with me. He's a pro. All right. All right. Using the real camera today, because John said use the real camera. All right, 1, 2, 3. Sushi. Yeah. All right. Great to see you. You want to push me here? Gosh, you're good. Oh my gosh, I've been training Joe for 6 months.
Okay, our second proclamation tonight, I would like to invite Kathy Kelly with Moms Demand Action. Come on up. We appreciate you being here. So, this is a proclamation for National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Whereas every day, more than 120 Americans are killed by gun violence and more than 200 are shot and wounded. With an average over 17,000 gun homicides every year, Americans are 26 times more likely to die by gun homicide than people in other high-income countries. And whereas Colorado has the 39th highest rate of gun deaths in the United States, with 850 gun deaths every year, at a rate of 17.4 deaths per 100,000 people. And whereas mayors, city council members, and law enforcement officers know their communities best, are the most familiar with local criminal activity and how to address it, and are best positioned to understand how to keep their residents safe. And whereas gun violence prevention is more important than ever as we see an increase in firearm homicides and non-fatal shootings across the country. And whereas in January 2013, Hadiah Pendleton was tragically shot and killed at age 15. On June 2nd, 2023, to recognize the 26th birthday of Hadiah, people across the United States will recognize National Gun Violence Awareness Day and wear orange in tribute to the victims of gun violence and the loved ones of those victims. And whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Hadiah's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange. They chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods, and orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas by wearing orange on June 2nd, 2023, Americans will again raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. And whereas the City of North Glen renews our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledges to do all we can to keep firearms out of the wrong hands and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our children and communities safe. Now, therefore, I, Meredith Leidy, Mayor of the City of North Glen, Colorado, hereby proclaim June 2nd, 2023 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the City of North Glen, and encourage all residents to support efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. Dated at North Glen, Colorado, this 22nd day of May, 2023. So I'm going to hand the mic over to you for a moment, but I also want to invite Chief May up, and he will speak after you. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, everyone. As Mayor Leidy has mentioned, gun violence is affecting all of us. 1 in 5 people are survivors or victims or family members of gun violence. And so one of the projects that Moms Demand Action works on is to ensure that you're aware of the impact of gun violence. We all have heard about it at Club Q and at East High School this year, and suicides and accidental shootings of our children. And so we appreciate this recognition for gun safety and an acknowledgement of the impact that gun violence has had on our community. I want to thank the mayor and the city council for the recognition.
Good evening. Actually, want to just reinforce, especially on responsible gun ownership, our city council and our city has taken extra steps to make sure that occurs in our community. We have a gun safe rebate program here in the city of North Glen, where if you buy a safe, it's 25% towards the value of that safe, up to $500. Again, what this does, it helps prevent those firearms getting in the hands of our children, taken in burglaries where they end up on the street. So please, take advantage of this program. You can go onto our website and you could look under public safety and research it, and it'll pop up, and it's done through the police department.
Yeah.
Thanks for keeping me.
Right. 1, 2, 3. Nuggets. Apparently you gotta turn it on first. I'm professional, don't worry. All right, 1, 2, 3. Again. One more. All right, thanks.
It's good to see you again.
Feel secure.
Thank you.
This is better.
Okay, we need all of our amazing Public Works employees to come back up because we are very honored to welcome Peter Adler with the American Public Works Association Accreditation Council. Just the amazing ones, all of them.
You're all amazing.
Come on, come on, come on.
I can use this, it's fine. Just making sure it's on. You have to pardon my voice. I have days my voice doesn't want to work. This is one of them. So, good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Pete Adler, and I'm, in addition to being a longtime member of the Board of Directors of the Colorado Chapter of APWA, I'm also Chair of the Accreditation Council of the American Public Works Association. I'm here to congratulate the staff of the City of North Glen Public Works Department on achieving full accreditation status. For those of you who might not know, accreditation is the mark of professionalism, indicating a public works agency has made the commitment to continuous improvement in the delivery of public works operations and services in the communities it serves. Accreditation recognizes an agency's policies, procedures, and practices which have been evaluated by experienced public works professionals by comparing them against internationally recognized management practices appropriate for that specific agency. Benefits to the agency and to the city include increased efficiencies, improved processes, succession planning, professional recognition, and continuous improvement. A team of evaluators came to North Glen in February for an in-person review. They reviewed 429 practices of the city of North Glen. Of those practices, one was considered a model practice. The practice on right-of-way management and code and permits information was singled out as having handouts and pamphlets that North Glen uses to provide information to the public that are user-friendly and walk through the processes clearly. Anybody who's worked with the city knows how important that is to understand the process. They also had a special note, which is that even though it's not a model practice, North Glen Public Works has a program where they collect broken and unused bicycles. They then have volunteers from the community come in and restore, fix, and refurbish the bicycles. Around the holidays, they take nominations from the schools and others to provide new bikes to kids that are in need. We think that's an awesome program. On March 15th, 2023, the APWA Accreditation Council, of which I'm the chair, awarded accreditation status to the City of North Glen Public Works Department. This is their initial accreditation. On behalf of the American Public Works Association, it is my pleasure to award this accreditation plaque in recognition of the hard work and dedication of these public works professionals. North Glen joins a growing and large list of Colorado agencies who have achieved accreditation. The first accredited agency in the country was the City of Greeley in 1997. So we claim that over Schaumburg, Illinois, because they were later that day. Anyway, other agencies that are accredited include Golden since 2003, Aurora in 2009, Cherry Hills Village in 2014, Arvada in 2015. I was the accreditation manager for that one. Castle Rock in 2016, Centennial in 2016, and Arapahoe County in 2018. I can tell you also the cities of Wheat Ridge, Greenwood Village, and Colorado Springs are in the final stages of their initial accreditation. And the city and county of Denver, Littleton, Commerce City, and Pueblo County are also starting their accreditation process. There are currently 157 agencies in the United States and Canada who are currently accredited. Congratulations on a job well done to the City of North Glen Public Works Department. And what you have here is the plaque that's given by APWA to each agency for display. And I understand you have a plaque at the treatment plant, and there'll also be one displayed here at City Hall for all to see. So congratulations. Do you want to say anything? Do you want to say anything? Oh, okay.
Guys, we did promise that when we. Way back.
Wide angle.
All right, everybody ready? Smile. 1, 2, 3. Again. Jason, can you tilt that a little this way? Yeah, there we go. Let's get a bad glare. 1, 2. I still have a glare. Tilt it again. There we go. 1, 2, 3. This one's important, so I want to get a good picture. All right, one of those should work. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, I like celebration. Okay, public invited to be heard. This is an opportunity for public comment on any item not set for public hearing. Statements are limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Statements must be related to city business and limited to matters of community interest. Joanna, is anyone signed up tonight to speak to council?
Yes, there is one person on the list, and it is Tom Lampo.
All right, welcome, Tom. Please state your name and address and provide your comments to council.
All right, thank you. Tom Lampo, 3951 Jackson Way. I'm here to pray for the city of Northland. I was reading 2 Samuel 22, and it came to me that the chapter was very appropriate for the times we are in. 2 Samuel 22:1 states, "And David spoke to the Lord the words of this song on the day when the Lord delivered him from the hand of all his enemies and from the hand of Saul. The Lord will deliver us from the hands of all our enemies." We're in a spiritual battle that's manifesting itself in the physical. The prayer is select verses in 2 Samuel 22. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, the only living God, in Jesus' name I declare and decree this over all the people of the city of Northglen. I pray that you look upon us not as the sinners we are, but as the forgiven children through the sacrifice of Jesus. I claim your victory, the victory you've already won for the city of Northglen. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold and my refuge, my Savior, you save me from violence. I call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies. For the waves of death encompassed me, the torrents of destruction assailed me, the cords of Sheol entangled me, the snares of death confronted me. In my distress I called upon the Lord. To my God I called. From his temple he heard my voice, and my cry came to his ears. He sent from on high, he took me, he drew me out of many waters. He rescued me from my strong enemy, from those who hated me, for they were too mighty for me. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out into a broad place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. With the merciful you show yourself merciful. With the blameless man you show yourself blameless. With the purified you deal purely, and with the crooked you make yourself seem tortuous. You save a humble people, but your eyes are on the haughty to bring them down. For you are my lamp, O Lord, and my God lightens my darkness. For by you I can run against a troop, and by my God I can leap over a wall. This God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord proves true. He is a shield for all those who take refuge in him. For who is God but the Lord? And who is a rock except our God? This God is my strong refuge and has made my ways blameless. He made my feet like the feet of a deer and set me secure on the heights. He trains my hands for war so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. You have given me the shield of your salvation, and your gentleness made me great. You gave a wide place for my steps under me, and my feet did not slip. The Lord lives, and blessed be my rock, and exalted be my God, the rock of my salvation, the God who gave me vengeance and brought down peoples under me, who brought me out from my enemies. You exalted me above those who rose against me. You delivered me from men of violence. For this I will praise you, O Lord, among the nations, and sing praise to your name. Great salvation he brings to his king and shows steadfast love to his anointed, to David and his offspring forever. And Father, I want to lift up our governments, our federal, state, county, and city governments to you, that your hand would be upon them, that your ways would be their ways, that as they serve, they would first serve as children of you, and next as elected representatives of the people. And Father, how can we forget the Denver Nuggets? I lift up the coaches and the players up to you. I ask your blessing for safety and health. Tonight, thank you for their extreme talents. Tonight, let them compete strongly with fairness to their opponents, and if it be your will, bring victory to them. In Jesus Christ's precious and holy name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
And I want to encourage all of Northglenn to view current events through a biblical worldview. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Made me pray for the Nuggets.
I love
That is not
I
fair.
love it. Spirit of community, I love it. Joanna, is there anyone else? I thought I saw 2 names on the list. No? Okay. Okay. All right, well, we will move into communication, starting with Ward 1. Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, Mayor. I got to attend the Parks and Rec Board, which was great last week. And it was pouring down the rain over here. And it was great. Most of the team got to do a tour of all of the parks. I had to visit. It definitely wasn't just because it was raining. So thank you so much to Amanda and the team. I know the board really enjoyed it. We went to the food truck carnival yesterday, which was amazing. Great food. We had amazing food from the Roadrunner food truck. I had like 4 people ask me where the food was that I had gotten from which truck. So that was great. Had great ice cream. An amazing turnout. The weather really turned around yesterday, which was great. And then just a reminder, Ward 1, we have our night out on June 1st. Have another session.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Ward 1, come on out, June 1st, and Nick and I will be there.
Councilmember Brown.
Oh, hello, Mayor.
Hello.
I worked the food truck carnival on Saturday. One of the things that I really love about the food truck carnival is that people will remember me when they come back from the year before. And I've met so many great people and friends through it all that I had a great time. Seemed a little slow, but hopefully it picked up that Saturday night. I do not have anything to report back from Nura because I was watching my grandson participate in the Century Band concert, which I might be biased, but he is so freaking talented. He plays the French horn and the trumpet for jazz, and they were amazing. I wish I could have recorded it all for you guys to hear. He was the best, but the band was amazing. So these last 2 weeks that I'm sure you're aware of it, Mayor, is just crammed with school engagements and fun things to do. So that's what I've been doing last week and the start of this week. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Oh, thanks. Councilmember Goff.
Thank you. Let's see. Well, I was kind of busy, so I'll just kind of quickly go through a few things. On May 11th, Councilmember Kondo and I toured the Murray Brown Labs, which was really an interesting place for people who are interested in science to go through. I remember going there as a bank, when it was a bank. May 13th, we all participated in a strategic planning meeting that I thought was very productive. On the 15th, I was here to, with several other people, to welcome the governor who came to honor our lifeguard program and announce the one that he's funding for the state. So that was pretty exciting that he chose Northglenn. May 19th, the CC4CA Executive Committee met and planned for our summer retreat and also was working on like a final draft of the policy statement, which the legislative group should be getting a copy of or has gotten a copy of. On the 20th in the morning, I testified before the Air Quality Control Commission on the state's plans to support electrification, ways to encourage more people to buy electric cars. Was basically what that was about. And then on the 21st, I also volunteered at the Food Truck Carnival, and the weather, I was lucky, the weather was nice when I was working, which was yesterday. So thanks to everybody who did all the work in those days when it wasn't maybe so wonderful. And then I did want to mention, not only is the Public Works Open House tomorrow, but at 5:30 PM, there will be a climate forum, which is sponsored by the city's sustainability task force or team. I'm not quite sure what the title is for that. And I will be speaking at that, so hope to see some of you there. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Kondo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apparently, I didn't get the staff memo on Nugget Spirit Wear or turquoise. I am wearing a shirt with the North Glen logo, so I think I'm covered in terms of all the colors going on. Tonight, I'm just going to talk mostly about Dr. Cog, and the reason why is there was a lot of Dr. Cog stuff happening. So for those of you in the audience, you're like, Dr. Cog what? It stands for Denver Regional Council of Governments. So it represents roughly about 42 cities, municipalities throughout the Denver Metropolitan Statistical Area, MSA. So cities like Lockport, Bennett, Boulder, Arvada, Westminster, us, all the way down south to Lone Tree. So there were a number of activities that were going on, and I think it's worth mentioning because it's very appropriate. You know, Dr. Goff, you mentioned how the air was kind of crummy, and Dr. Cog actually spends time focusing on those sort of things. So just in the Thornton North Glen Sentinel, Dr. Cog just announced that they are receiving $1 million from the Inflation Reduction Act, which is going to be monies to be able to help lower air pollution efforts, or efforts to lower air pollution. And that money is going to be meted out through the state and counties here shortly. But that's one of the things that we do. And in fact, back on last Friday, the 12th, both Councilmember Long and myself, we attended the strategic planning session. And it was a good opportunity for me to bring my alternate to meet people from the 42 other municipalities. And it's a nice way to network and talk to other folks to understand best practices and build those sort of relationships that are really important when you live in a metropolitan area. The other thing was that Dr. Cog did have their monthly meeting on the 17th, and they announced from the CDOT, Colorado Department of Transportation, that there is an extended application deadline for the Safe Streets Initiative. And this would be for projects that involve, like, for example, putting bicycle striping lanes down and things of that nature. So, again, for the purposes of the audience, really, Dr. Cog is a very important organization that helps to make sure that our transportation, our laydown of and planning of our cities is such that, you know, we are doing everything possible to encourage people to use mass transit, to be able to lower the amount of greenhouse gas emissions. And in fact, there's one other element to Dr. Cog, the Area Agency on Aging, AAA. I'm not sure why they came up with that, but they also deal with those sort of issues where you're trying to figure out how to take care of the elderly and be able to provide programs and resources for people to age in place. I know that was a very long tone, but I thought I'd provide this opportunity to kind of explain what Dr. Cog is and share with you all some of the benefits of being part of that organization. Thank you.
Councilmember Long.
Good evening, everyone. My report is to follow up a little bit on Councilman Kondo shared with the Dr. Cog dinner. I must say right off that Councilman Kondo, I don't think there's a person there he doesn't know. I was introduced to many, many folks, and in a short while, he's made himself and endeared himself to many, many folks, so hats off to you, sir. I would add also that I attended the Planning Commission meeting on the 16th, last Tuesday, and upcoming will be a zoning consideration for us for, unfortunately, Cakes by Karen will be replaced with a new senior high rise living facility, it looks like, maybe as many as 150 units. That'll be for our consideration upcoming as well. There was all the new signage for Prost our new brewery is coming online, and they're going to have some beautiful signage for us to consider as well. Those are the two main topics at the Planning Commission. I'm also here to report the North Metro Fire Rescue District meeting was really, we had a Saturday open house for those that were interested to know of the extension that is being requested for the mill levy that supports the fire district. It runs out and expires in 2024. The vote will be before the citizens come this November. So there was a really well-done, detailed presentation to show the whys and wherefores for going forward. And just as a retrospective, I also serve on the audit committee for the North Metro Fire District, and we had our meeting, and the audit went well. There are no issues, happy to report. All the construction that's taken place was planned for, and I must say there's more and more coming. You might know in Northglen, we've renovated 62 and 63, our firehouses here in Northglen. As well, we built a brand-new firehouse in Broomfield, the oldest one in our district. And tomorrow evening, Councilman Kondo will be sworn in as the new board member for the fire district. Congratulations again for your successful win in the voting that took place. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Luqman Hirama.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let's see, on the 10th, I attended the Business Retention and Expansion Committee meeting, and I am happy to say that there is a theme for the next business appreciation event, which I will not disclose because it's still top secret, but pretty excited about that. I attended the Police Pension Board meeting on the 10th, the AC Rep State of the Region, in which Governor Polis and the state demographer presented very interesting information, and the governor did give us a shout out, Northglen in whole, for Prost. So we're definitely on the map. Happy to say that. Also attended the governor's press conference, in which our amazing lifeguards were highlighted and our amazing staff as well for everything that they have been doing. I think it was pretty special for the governor to choose our location to have that press conference. Pretty important. Plus, we have such a beautiful facility, so it was kind of nice to show that off. I attended the Youth Commission meeting, which is their last official meeting for the summer, on May 16th. And it was pretty fun. Actually, I had no idea what I was in for, but apparently they play dodgeball burrito. And so I had to partake in that. My first experience playing dodgeball burrito. Didn't know that existed. Also, the next thing they have coming up is their Twitch fundraising, and that will be on June 3rd from 2 to 5 p.m. And I believe Councilmember Burns, you wanted to know what they were playing. It's Fall Guys, Mario Kart, Smash Brothers, all the Nintendo games. So if anybody's interested in helping with their fundraising, I believe their goal is $5,000. So you don't have to play a game to pop on and donate, in case you would like to do that. On the 17th, I attended the Vail Board meeting. That was my first meeting. That is the Victim Assistance and Law Enforcement meeting. And we will be opening that up for funding again. There was a pause last year. Advertising for that, for applications, will go out probably sometime in July, and our amazing staff will take care of that. And then funding approval happens in October. I also attended the Food Truck Carnival. I helped out on Friday night, and it was very cold. It was not a pleasant day. I did make it back on Sunday, and it was a beautiful day. I got some horchata ice cream, which was very delicious. Again, big shout out to our staff because such a smooth event. Everything was just run so amazingly, so great job. Today was a fun-packed day as well. I got a chance to volunteer at Hillcrest for their field day. Councilmember Long, you were also invited. Crossroads Community Center reached out and asked for some volunteers at their field day, so I said, sure, why not? And it was pretty fun to have the kids. It was a beautiful day for it. So that was really nice, meeting parents and seeing the kids have a great time in our, own Ward 4 school, Northglen. I also attended the Northglen Senior Organization meeting today, and just a couple of things they wanted me to let everyone know is they have their Big Top Senior Celebration happening on May 31st. from 2 to 4 p.m. at the rec center in the community rooms, and it is free. You must be the young age of 55 or older. So if you are interested in doing something fun and supporting our senior organization, there'll be live performances, music, and food, and I guess circus-type entertainment. And last but not least, today we had our last legislative meeting recap for the session. Session is officially over, and we will have our lobbyists present on Monday, so I'll keep it very brief. I'll just go over the wins. Obviously, the biggest win that we had was defeating SB 213, so that was a huge win for us. And two other wins were the auto theft bill passed, so that removes the monetary value of a vehicle theft, and that was a concern because people who don't have expensive cars also suffer when their vehicles are stolen. So that passed, and also the opposition to limit low-level offenses did not pass, and we were kind of worried about that to, take that away from our police officers. We did not want that. And then something for Councilmember Goff for the CC4CA. The committee did decide to support the proposed policy statement for 2023 because it is in line with our state legislative issues guide. So that was definitely something that we wanted to support. Plus, the language also states that it allows and enables and clearly strives to maintain local control, which is also very important to the city of North Bend. And that is all I have. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, so a couple things. I did want to highlight the strategic planning day that council spent together. It was a full Saturday. A lot of really good work was done. And then at the end, some of us went to Lizzie's axe throwing, which was just a really fun experience, something I've never done before. So that was just a fun day in May. I was really honored to attend the North Glen Middle School 60th birthday celebration. It was 60 plus 2. I think it was 2 years late. So, but they had a really lovely event. And Jenny Murphy, one of our staff members, was there with me, and we gave out a bunch of books to kids. And those were actually donated by a North Glen business. So At Cheers had an event, and they gifted the city hundreds of books. Really amazing, high-quality text for kids. And so I had a lot of fun kind of geeking out of all the books in the pile I had read. I was like, oh, read this one. This one's my favorite. So it was just really fun. And one of the highlights, though, was Superintendent Chris Skidowski. He was a alum of North Glen Middle School, so he broke out his saxophone and he played with the band. And that was a highlight. It was a very sweet moment. So that was really fun. And also, huge thank you to city staff for the Food Truck Carnival. We know it is a big project. It's such a big event. But I want to take a little sidestep, and I want to highlight our North Glen Community Foundation, because I was also able to volunteer. I must have gotten a very small, awesome window. Councilmember Kondo and I were on Saturday, and it was not raining, and it was lovely. But what I noticed is that our community foundation members, they gave so many man-hours to that event. And the IDing tent and the alcohol, that whole is a fundraiser for the North Glen Community Foundation, but it is a small group of people, so I'm going to read all their names. Marcy Whitman, former council member, yes. Mary Herman, Sherry Hale, Jerry Gavette. The vice president is our own Amanda Peterson. And this organization is led right now by President Leslie Carrico. And so that is a small group of residents that do a lot for the community. And they're kind of these unsung heroes behind the curtain. So I just wanted to take a minute and highlight them and thank them for their work throughout the weekend, but also throughout the years. And you can find all of that information on our website, and there's opportunities for more people to volunteer alongside them. So that's my little small commercial. City Clerk Small.
Thank you, Mayor. I had the fortunate privilege of attending the International Institute of Municipal Clerks Conference for a part of last week. It's always a great opportunity to learn more and to network with clerks from across the country and internationally. So that was wonderful, and I am now happy to be back in Colorado. That's all I have.
But you also had fun celebrations with your own family.
Spit it out. Come on. We're going to pull it out of you, so
Yeah,
just
some
do it.
graduation.
Yes,
some-
very proud of my second oldest son, Kobe, who graduated from the University of Colorado at Boulder.
That's a big deal. Congrats.
Huge.
City Manager Guyer.
And thank you, Mayor. A couple updates for council this evening. This Saturday, we will be opening Kiwanis Pool. Hours for Kiwanis Pool are on the city website, but I'll read them just briefly. Pool hours are Monday and Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m., Tuesday and Thursday, 11:30 a.m. to 7 p.m., Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And those hours run through August 13th, and then we shift for a period of time to weekend-only hours. But very excited to open the pool for the season and hope for some very sunny, warm days, hot days, rather. We will be providing council these turquoise shirts for accreditation, so apologies that you didn't get them prior to this evening, but you each will receive one of those. Also a shout out, an echo of the compliments given to staff this evening about Food Truck Carnival. Great event, went smoothly. And then thank you, Mayor, for highlighting the Community Foundation members. Also want to give each of you a shout out that were able to volunteer. Mayor Lighty, Council Members Brown, Kondo, Lukman, Hiramasa, Goff, and then Councilmember Nick Walker's girlfriend Katie also volunteered. So thank you for coming out. This type of event is all hands on deck, and we really appreciate you supporting the community. And that's all I have this evening. Thanks.
Thank you. City Attorney Hoffman.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Nothing this evening.
A man of few words. Okay. Moving into the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve?
Actually, I'd like to make a comment.
Yes. Oh, yes, go ahead.
So I thought I would be the first ever to, in my career, being on council for a year, to pull something off of consent agenda.
What happens? But go ahead.
Unfortunately, tonight is not the night. And the reason why is that, I had a concern about Council Resolution 81, and I was fortunate enough to seek the advice of our wise city council, and my concerns were allayed. So I will not pull that off of the consent agenda. But I think it really underscores how important it is to kind of go through the material and try and answer your concerns outside of this meeting. And so that's the message I wanted to convey.
Yeah, thank you. That is a great example. Okay, back to the motions. We were kind of mumbled there. Who motioned first?
Second.
Joanna, did you get that?
I'll get it later. Just to clarify,
did I
was
totally
there an
throw you
item,
off?
I couldn't understand. Was there an
No.
item pulled?
No,
Okay.
he was just commenting that he wanted to, but he
Did his
checked
homework.
in, he did his homework and decided not to, which was an example. So I believe it was Councilmember Goff with the motion and Councilmember Kondo with the second.
Thank you. Okay.
Please
vote is
open
now
the vote. Please vote.
I will close that vote, and the consent agenda passes unanimously.
Great. We have one ordinance on first reading, CB 2008. Joanna, will you read the title, please?
A bill for an ordinance amending Article 9 of Chapter 7 of the North Glen Municipal Code, expanding the definitions of types of electric operating devices permitted to operate in the city.
Move for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, Amanda Peterson, our Director of Parks, Recreation, and Culture, is here to provide a summary. Hello.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as discussed at a previous study session or two, this amendment would allow for an expanded definition of our OPDMDs or other power-driven mobility devices, to allow for those devices to be used on our trails and sidewalks as intended by the ordinance. It will also allow for our e-bicycles and e-scooters to be treated in the same manner as per state statute. And then in addition, based on council feedback, this ordinance will also limit where e-scooters are usable, so on our public streets and on our trails and in certain park spaces, but not on our sidewalks. And then allows for e-bikes and e-scooters to be ridden by minors with based on parental approval rather than being in the ordinance as it is currently, and also asks for those minors to wear helmets while they're riding. If approved on first reading, this would then go forward for second reading and public hearing here in a couple of weeks. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So also coming up Parks and Rec Board meeting, I just wanted to sort of bring up for discussion, as the board was chatting with me, is why are we looking at bikes and e-bikes differently? As I believe one member of who was at our board meeting, humble bragged that he can reach 23 miles per hour on his regular bike. What is sort of like the distinction between a speed limit on an e-bike versus someone who can reach top speeds on regular bikes?
Do you want to speak to that, or?
I think it's a bit philosophical for all of you, right? Whether we want to, we're bringing forward the ordinance to align with our state statute, which says we can't treat them, though specifically e-bikes and e-scooter, or the e-scooters, differently than the e-bikes or more restricted than the e-bikes. It doesn't, we're pretty silent on traditional bicycles, and the ability for someone to use those at an appropriate speed. I would say it's probably comparable to someone who provided some feedback on the survey that said, hey, I can drive my car can go 80 miles an hour, but I'm allowed to drive it on a 25 mile per hour street. Why can't I drive my e-bike on a trail and just be asked to limit the speed? So I think it's philosophical whether you'd like to include, additionally legislate a traditional bicycle, or just by adding this ordinance, all of those vehicles, whether it's an e-bike or an e-scooter, should abide by speed limits at 15 miles per hour.
Councilmember Kondo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm actually an avid bicyclist. I ride both the non-e-bike as well as the e-bike. And this is just strictly my opinion, but when you're pedaling and exerting your own energy to kind of keep a bicycle up, it takes a lot of effort. But I will submit that you have a little bit more agility to be able to stop or move around an object. Certainly, when I ride an e-bike where you're being assisted, you have so much momentum going, and then of course you're carrying this heavy battery. So it's almost like being two bicycle weights moving down the pathway or the road. And I just think that if, God forbid, if there was an accident, collision, the consequences could be a little bit more dire as opposed to just strictly a non-part because of the mass colliding between two, the e-bike being a much bigger device.
Because I might be misunderstanding this. I can tell you all the acronyms in this particular one. I have to use some brain power. So when you're saying that they're treated differently, what is the concern? One can do what? One.
If you're on like a regular bicycle, you can reach your max speed.
You can go over 15.
Yeah, you can go over 15.
If you're a really healthy bicyclist, you can go 25
Oh, you're talking,
miles.
there was a max speed somewhere?
Yeah, 15 miles per hour.
Okay. Don't believe we're gonna have time or space to do a radar gun for these, are we?
No, but that's
I think it's truly an etiquette, and I would say that trail etiquette applies to any device on any trail, right? That you're driving on the right side of the trail or riding on the right side of the trail, that you're notifying a pedestrian if you're passing them on the left, that you are using safe speeds no matter where you're at. And we did talk about the ability to, by resolution, identify dismount zones or other trail etiquette that I think is outside of this ordinance. It's referenced in this ordinance, but outside of this ordinance specifically. And Corey can certainly chime in, but this ordinance is specific to our electric powered devices. And so I don't think we would reference a traditional bicycle in this particular ordinance. Like I said, it doesn't mean that as we're talking about trail etiquette, that we don't continue to remind people of any device that they're on, that we're asking them to maintain those reasonable speed limits and proper etiquette.
Missed that part, sorry. I have to tell you, sometimes when space happens between these conversations, I'm like, what did we say? We did say that. You are right. Since this conversation, I had two residents reach out. One was about four-wheelers and the other one was about golf carts. Can you just speak to that real quick? I know we've
course.
talked about it, but.
So neither of those devices would be allowable per this ordinance. The OPDMDs or other power-driven mobility devices, those are really more like the scooter you would see a senior using for mobility purposes, right? They need assistance in getting from point A to point B. Our current ordinance only defined essentially a Segway as being that one device, but didn't kind of open up for other devices. This current ordinance allows for a single rider on a mobility device like a seated scooter or something along those lines. I had some images on the previous presentation, but I don't have those here tonight.
I'm wondering if we're going to have those images on the website somewhere,
We
right?
certainly can.
So that city, residents can Google, like, can I drive my golf cart in the city?
I think that's
And
a good idea to add.
And then we have a page that has images of what's allowed and what's not allowed, because that is, obviously, people are still doing it. I have a lovely neighbor who has a very fun little ATV that he drives, but it's,
And the ordinance does specifically disallow toy vehicles, which are, those
the
would
ones
fall
that
under
we
those
see. Yeah, we
definitions.
talked about that last week. All the Christmas.
But yeah, I think we
Day.
could, once the ordinance is in place, especially once we get that resolution in place, assuming you decide to move forward, identifying some dismount zones, and we can have the park rangers work on some public engagement around etiquette and include some photos and FAQs.
I know I keep jumping in, but one more question. Because this seems like a public hearing. Sometimes we get zero attendance. Oftentimes we get zero attendance. How can we encourage our residents to weigh in on this during that public hearing? Can we put it on social media? What are our normal channels for that?
So the clerk's office always puts that out, and we can do the same. We have our park message boards, so we can take the opportunity to post that on park message boards. It would go forward on June 12th if it moves forward this evening. So we would be happy to help promote that as well.
Just wondering. Councilmember Goff.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to make one other comment, kind of along the lines of Councilmember Kondo, is that on the e-devices, the electronically powered devices, very young children can go very fast. And so to me, that would be a reason why we would have a speed limit specifically to electronic. If they're just pedaling, depending on the size and age, of course, many of them would never get that speed.
Councilmember Brown.
I'm sorry, my comment is really for Councilmember Burns. So this came forward from residents' complaints in Ward 1. So I would talk to Nick, because Councilmember Walker, because he's the one that brought it forward, but there was something in your ward regarding the older people that are using the single modality scooter, what is that, OPMD, blah, blah, blah.
OPDMD, lots of letters.
So I would just suggest that he can give you some background on what was going on.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And actually, we had a lot of input from Ward 4 senior residents as well, so I think that was part of what helped move this forward. And I just want to throw this out there today at the senior organization meeting. They did express some concerns initially about how to regulate the speed, but I did mention, a regular bicycle can go just as fast, and there's no way to put a governor on, that was a suggestion, on an e-bike. So I did ask them to please tune in if they wanted to. But after some discussion, I think for them it was supported mostly because they understood that this is a way for some of our seniors to get around a little bit better. So I just wanted to mention that. And then my other question was on the etiquette. Sorry, I'm pretty hoarse today. And I know this mentions doing a trial in E.B. Rains Park for like mounting and dismount zones, which I think is amazing. But there was also some mention of possibly doing some lanes, like go on the right side, go on the left side, as you see in other city trails, maybe
So-
the northwest open space?
So we had identified that we would not include that in the ordinance itself, but would bring a resolution forward identifying those areas. So if this is approved on second reading, then we would bring that resolution forward. As I said, we thought a good place to start as a pilot would be within E.B. Rains and see what that response is, what the level of compliance is. And then we can certainly add other areas or make considerations for trail striping or other means of helping manage speed and trail etiquette.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's something that the seniors seemed to support as well, having some kind of striping. I guess maybe just the perception feels a little safer. Thank you.
And we definitely have to look at where that could be appropriate as a trail. A lot of our trails don't necessarily have the width to designate a bicycle or an e-bike or scooter lane, but working on that trail etiquette, I think, is super important so that people are staying on the same side of the trail, notifying others when they're coming up behind them, and just using good manners and sharing the trail with their fellow users.
Absolutely. I've seen some stuff in the northwest open space.
Yeah. And like the dirt bikes that you saw would not be permitted as an e-bicycle.
ATVs.
Definitely very different.
On the soccer fields.
Not allowable in any circumstance.
Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had this came up during the Parks and Rec Board meeting. So this is for you, Corey, that's why I'm staring at you. Is there a regular bike versus e-bike? Like, is there, since we're putting them in this specific category, does that really differentiate them in a legal way?
I think Amanda probably answered this best because much of this is a philosophical discussion that's triggered not by bike versus e-bike, but by e-bike versus e-scooter. And so really, the way the law has required us to treat them has required us to navigate what council has asked related to mobility devices, but not running afoul of state law that says we have to treat e-bikes and e-scooters essentially the same. So I'm not sure that's answering your question as directly as I'd like to, but that's really what triggered this. And, the 15 mile an hour speed limit can be posted to apply to either, and people can certainly exceed that with a regular bike as well. This language doesn't prohibit us from doing that because what it says is prohibitions, we can put up signage. We can always put up signage for speed limits related to bikes and e-bikes, even in other locations.
Yeah, because I see e-bikes looking around our little cul-de-sac, but we're not putting 50-mile-per-hour limits on the road. Correct?
Correct. But if there was an area that council wanted to look on, that was area that was particularly of concern related to bicycles, there's nothing in this that would prohibit that in addition to regulating e-bikes.
Just to add to that, I would suggest that as you talk about the pilot program and the resolution, so outside of this, that those dismount zones do apply to all of those wheeled vehicles or devices, not just an e-bike or an e-scooter, but a regular bike or a regular scooter as well, so that there's some consistency there.
Yeah, just thinking of non-discriminatory mandatory, like, e-bikers. Keeping them more on like an equal plan. Because I understand like you're like, it's way heavier and that was kind of my point here. Our board meeting was like, to me, the motor seems a lot more intense. I'm not a physics expert, so I don't know what would happen if like a regular bike going 25 miles an hour versus 15 slide into something. It could have the same impact or not, but I agree with you. The weight.
So thank you, Councilmember Brown, for kind of revisiting where this began, because I think I forgot. And you're right, it did begin with those particular vehicles. And then it expanded to the e-bike conversation where we have a lot of residents, e-bikes are more and more popular. I'm still struggling with, I feel like the toy part, I'm still confused about. And I'm reading this as it's written with kind of the edits. I don't understand why toy vehicles are still not allowed, but we're gonna say parents can put a child on an electric scooter, which is at times far more dangerous. This just doesn't feel complete to me. It feels a little scattered, and so I'm struggling with this one as it's written.
It's not scattered, it's complying with state law. And
Okay,
if I could draft what I wanted consistent with council's direction in that regard, it would be inconsistent with state law because we can't differentiate. So that, I appreciate the concern. We have a real-world constraint of not being able to act in a manner that is inconsistent with state law in this area.
Okay, I think that's what's confusing me, is it's like, and maybe the state law is all, but whatever the state law says, are we just saying, yes, we agree? I mean, does this align completely, or did we amend it in some way? Because I'm looking at the things, I'm like, why would we, I do struggle with the parent liability piece is two different things. And I would rather us be consistent with that. It doesn't feel consistent across the board. And it's like e-scooters are on public streets unless we say you can use it in a park. What is that? That's why it feels confusing to me. Instead of just saying, this is where you use these, this is where you use these are allowed in our city, or is it just a free-for-all? I'm just struggling with the language in this, and if it's the state law's problem, so be it. But it's really hard for me to be like, yes, let's do this. I don't love it.
I think it's in part because state law says we have to treat e-bikes and e-scooters the same way. State law defines an e-scooter very specifically as a stand-up, two-wheeled with handlebars device, and does not have the restrictions in it that the existing ordinance does. So state law doesn't say children can't ride it. State law does not say that a helmet is required. State law does not say where they can be ridden. And so as we had that conversation with council and the requests were to include some of those things, I think that might be where there maybe is a little bit of potential conflict between the two because state law is so sort of wide open. And so we tried to merge that with this request for some parameters that council felt best with. I will share with you that I think the Parks Board, and Councilmember Burns sort of alluded to this, the Parks Board is definitely in favor of less legislation associated with e-bikes and e-scooters, and just saying that, yes, they're allowed, and to use proper etiquette with some basic limitations, like you can't ride them on a sports field or on a sport court. But we want to make sure that we're meeting all of the needs of all of our residents. I know you've gotten input from others beyond just Parks Board, right? Whether it be those that responded via the survey or feedback you all have heard at other meetings or in your community that had some concerns around children and safety. And so we incorporated those into the ordinance.
Okay. but state law says they can't ride toy vehicles.
State
what
law
you're
does
saying.
not include a scooter in the toy vehicle definition any
Correct.
longer.
That's the best way to put it.
The electric scooter, right?
So, okay. Because as I read through this, I really do feel like it's more convoluted than clear. So if I was a resident, I am a resident, but if as a resident, I was like, okay, I want to get my kid this for his birthday, I'm going to go to the city website, I'm going to find out what's allowed. I am not going to leave after reading this clear on anything. I'd be like, okay, well, I can't get him this, but I can get him this. He can ride it here, but he can't ride it here. So why would I spend that kind of money? Because it would not, this would not be helpful. So part of me is just thinking, just leave it. Just leave it. Just let it all be wide open. And we'll figure it out. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And it hasn't in any of these conversations. I know the root of it was we have people with motorized devices and they need to be able to use our trails. Why can't we just end it there?
If you want to go to a study session and start over, we certainly can do that.
Well, we don't have to. You guys can vote on it. I just don't think it's clear, is all I'm saying.
I don't know how to try again, frankly. We took your direction and applied it to the ordinance. I will admit that when you look at the way the ordinance is drafted, it does not have the entire chapter laid out, which I think if you read the entire thing, it would look more clear. That's not how, but only certain portions of the ordinance are being amended. We can certainly put that in the packet. It might help because it has the definition, for example, of toy vehicles, as I recall, and other things that aren't in this ordinance because we weren't amending that portion. So I don't know if that would help.
Probably not. I mean, like I said, whatever we do, I'm sure there's more people that think it's fine. We just have to be clear. And so if the way this is written, because there's not a resident that's going to read the whole chapter, right? They're not going to do that. They want the abridged version. What can I get? Where can I write it? This, as it reads, does not tell me that I have clear navigation in this city that makes any sense to me.
If I could put pictures in the ordinance, I would. I mean, I hate to put it that way, but that's frankly, I think much of what this difficulty is that as the law has evolved and as certain things have been defined, I agree with you that the terminology is not intuitive. But in order to comply with state law, we have to define certain things certain ways. So do I think it would be nice to be able to make this user-friendly with pictures? Absolutely, and I think that would be helpful. Perhaps the city can try to put that out. I know that Amanda did that in the study session, and I think at the study session, it made it much more clear to council, and we could, I would hope, provide that same sort of clear guidance to our residents. But we're sort of stuck with what the state legislation gives us for providing these constraints.
So I don't know if there's a way to say that respectfully, because I can tell you, again, if I'm looking at these things and I'm saying, I can buy this, but I can't buy that cute little pink motorized thing that every kid gets when they're 2, that is ridiculous. So if you're saying that's because the state says it, then can we say, like, sorry? Then it's also silly because nobody's enforcing that. Nobody's gotten a ticket for those cute little things. In fact, there's plenty of social media posts about cops pulling them over because it's funny. So I don't love the idea of putting out something that we're going to enforce inconsistently. That's hard for me. And it just feels messy. So, but if everyone else gets it, then so be it. It's perfectly fine. Councilmember Congo, do you have your hand up?
I did, because, when I sit here and I listen to your comment, and I think about what Councilmember Brown said, I mean, the whole genesis was, the resident was concerned about whether they could drive their motorized senior citizen resident, was concerned about whether they could drive their OPMD on the park trails. So I just wonder if going back to that very simple concept of whether today they can do it. I don't believe they can do it today under how our ordinance is written. Is that correct?
Say that again?
A senior resident who needs to drive their battery-powered scooter, they can't drive it on our trails.
Correct.
So in your desire, Madam Mayor, for simplicity, I mean, do we go back to the drawing board and just that central idea? Because when you think about it, when you're on a trail, irregardless of your age, what you're driving, as Amanda talked about, there's some level of common sense and personal responsibility, following the rules of the road and not colliding into people. Now I'm kind of revealing where I sit, kind of philosophically.
Yeah.
I am sympathetic to your concern about making rules and ordinances that are simple to understand.
I don't know.
I do think we
Councilmember
may
Goff.
have a bit of a challenge just in that our current ordinance doesn't comply fully with state statute. So we would,
Oh, okay, so we're also
Correct.
trying to,
yes.
we're untangling spaghetti here.
We are.
Yes. And they're all smushed
A
into
really
one
good way to put
chapter.
it.
And it has been continually evolving, and I think state law is trying to keep up with the technology, as are we.
Right. I don't know, it feels like sausage making.
Yeah, it does. That's what I'm
Agreed.
loving.
I would say that it is confusing, but there are a couple of points that did get put in here that I think people were asking for clarity on. And one is what Councilmember Kondo just mentioned, and the other one, for me anyway, is that electric scooters are not permitted on sidewalks. And so that was a concern that I know I had where, and I think at that discussion, study session, people were talking about that though they can go at great speed, and if they're on the sidewalk, they can be crashing into people and just kind of unsafe. So there were
Well, can we clarify? Because I thought I read in here that it said unless the city designates a section. Like it
Right.
gives the city the opportunity to add sidewalks that they, and at parks, that they
Well-
can use it.
I mean, I'm assuming that that's going to be the rare situation. It had to do, it's the, I'm looking at it here, it says, section 792C, electric scooters are permitted to be used on public streets but not on sidewalks. However, where the city has determined that the roadway is too highly trafficked to be safe, then they can have a sign there. But that doesn't sound like it would be many
Say, for
places.
example, if you were trying to get to a bus stop, and there wasn't a designated bicycle or scooter lane for you to get to.
So that instance is actually prohibiting the use on the roadway, not adding use on the sidewalk.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So they're already permitted per the ordinance amendment. These devices, it really doesn't matter what the device is, right? The devices, the OPDMDs aside, because those have access on sidewalks, trails, and in parks. But bicycles, or e-bikes and e-scooters are permitted per the council discussion at the previous study session that Corey put in the ordinance, on roadways, on our trails, but not on our sidewalks, and only in the park spaces that are not excluded. So you can't ride it on a sports field, right? You can't go take it even, can't ride across the tennis court. You can't use the tennis court as a space for an e-bike or an e-scooter, because those aren't designed for that use and would be disruptive of the type of use that is intended in those spaces. That particular section of the ordinance is simply saying, if there's a section of roadway where the city believes that it's not safe to use these devices on the roadway, can specifically exclude the roadway by signage and only allow the adjacent trail if there's an adjacent trail within that reasonable distance.
Yeah, what I've done, like I did going to the Food Truck Carnival, because I rode my e-bike over there, is that community center drive traffic was too scary. So I dismounted and pushed my bike on the side. And so that's what I'm assuming the reference here would be, that if the street is not safe, then you can't go on the street. And you shouldn't be doing it riding on the sidewalk. You know, push it a few feet.
So sidewalk is also only referencing those residential sidewalks. So in your neighborhoods, you couldn't be on the sidewalk. On our trails, on our trails that run through our parks or run adjacent to our parks, those would be allowable spaces.
In Washington, right?
Correct. That would be a trail.
So I'm looking at 793A. And I'm just confused about the language. So it says, except where otherwise posted, blah, 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 are permitted to be used on trails and in certain park spaces. That's what I was referring to. In what certain park spaces?
Sorry, I'm trying to find 793. I got my pages out of order.
I think, for example, the concern which was brought up by Councilmember Brown was like, say, around the E.B. Rains Park near the sensory. And
But
near the
this is saying
pavilions.
they are permitted in
Correct.
certain park spaces. So how, does that need to be defined? Is that just open and vague?
So it's defined right below it, which is, I agree, it's hard to see on there. So section 7.93A says where it's excluded, and then the 4 or 3 bullet points below are what define where it's not permitted. So on playgrounds, on tennis, basketball, pickleball, or other courts of similar nature and design, and on athletic fields.
So that was my question, because it makes it read like, or at least it reads to me, because when Councilmember Goff said, I'm just glad they're not allowed on sidewalks, and yet they could be, because the sidewalks are not listed in those exclusions. Playgrounds are, tennis courts and stuff are, athletic fields are, but it doesn't, I'm just not understanding that. So I think it's just vague, and that's where I've been struggling this whole time. It's vague and not necessarily consistent. Because if it says no, for example, how would I not know that I could ride around on the sidewalk the lake? Can I do that?
So you could, because that's a trail.
That's a trail,
So
right?
sidewalks are just in your residential neighborhoods.
Oh, so
Like the
is
sidewalk in
that
front of your
defined somewhere?
homes
The
would
sidewalk
would be a sidewalk,
in a residential area.
not a trail. So anything that's identified as a trail, so anything that's in the concrete in a park, and that seems like a silly definition. It makes sense in my head, but concrete in a park is a trail. Concrete right in front of your home is a sidewalk.
I didn't know.
And so
Okay,
those
well,
sidewalks are often quite narrow. Generally, we have sidewalks that are 3 to 4 feet. Our trails are typically significantly wider than that. There's certainly a few exceptions around town.
So here's an example, again, Fox Run example, sidewalk in the neighborhood, trail down Fox Run Parkway.
Correct.
Interesting. Okay. This is probably not going to be enforced anyway, so I probably should stop just overthinking it. I just think it's messy, but it's okay. Councilmember Brown?
Well, I finally got on your bus with the toys. Because, does that mean, I'm just gonna throw this out at you, that Cambria can't ride her little Mercedes Benz on the sidewalks?
I am going to defer to Corey for that.
According to the state.
Again, according to, it's an enforcement issue, and I will be the first to admit, no one's going to enforce her
Right.
riding her Mercedes on sidewalk.
As long as it's pink and plastic.
It's white.
White and plastic.
It's got a boom box, guys. So then they could ride those up, not just Cambria, but other parents could, their kids can ride them up at Webster Lake and all of that?
Is
Yes.
anyone going to enforce that?
No, nobody's gonna
Probably
enforce
not.
it, so then I
But
fall back onto the
By the definition of a
mayor.
toy vehicle, it's technically not allowed.
So that's when I fall back to what the mayor was saying, that maybe we have blown this out of proportion because it doesn't make sense to me. I got on her bus about halfway through and went back and was reading paragraphs again. It's not gonna, why in the world would we ever put something into place that we know would never be enforced?
So that's current, in the current ordinance, the toy vehicles are not allowed.
Okay,
The current ordinance or past ordinance, I included an e-scooter as a toy vehicle.
okay, so we're just
We're
flipping its
removing
classification.
e-scooter from the toy vehicle. Like, let me rephrase, we're not removing. The state removed e-scooter from the toy vehicle definition and called it out separately. So we're
And
trying
said
to-
you can't regulate it different than bikes.
That damn state.
Blame the state.
So let's try to think this through, right? So we just have to vote tonight, and then it goes to public hearing, and then, so say it passes. What then?
The significant changes from our current ordinance would mean if a child is riding an e-scooter on our trails or on our streets, or an adult for that matter, it would be permissible. Right now, it is against our ordinance to allow any child to be on any scooter or any toy vehicle in our city, regardless of where it's at. So we could choose to leave it that way, but we would also have to disallow e-bikes, which we are currently silent on.
Thank you. That's where the philosophical thing comes in. Okay. Because I'm like, e-bikes, I'm sure are fine. They're very, very popular. I have a personal problem, which is not a council problem. I don't think small children should be on those electric scooters, but that's not for me to say. What we need to figure out is if this matters. Like, what is it gonna, that wasn't the whole purpose. I think that's why I'm frustrated. So,
But unfortunately, since our current ordinance didn't align with state statute, it all came together. We couldn't update it to address the OPDMDs and not do our due diligence to ensure we were aligned with state statute as well.
okay, so worst case scenario, not worst case, a scenario is it passes and all of these things are all over our sidewalks and parks. It's not going to come back to us in complaint form until people get hurt, until there's collisions, until it's an unsafe situation. And then it will definitely come back to this body. But up until then, we're not going to have park rangers running around trying to figure out if it's a sidewalk versus a trail, or they didn't stop at the right transition and they kept going. And we're not going to be going crazy with.
We're not. And my park rangers are only in the park spaces, which they're allowed everywhere, but on those courts and playgrounds. They're not necessarily generally in your neighborhoods. I would suggest this use is already happening pretty significantly out in our parks and neighborhoods.
Well, I would say we need to pass it in order to give accessibility to the people who need it. That's the purpose, and that would be the reason to say yes. But I really am hopeful that this doesn't turn into a dangerous situation, because it definitely. So, okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A quick question, please don't kill me. But I do remember we asked if this was consistent with other cities. So could you remind us? It is. So other cities already allow that. I know we're concerned about, what we would allow from this point forward in Northglenn, but if other cities are already allowing that?
It was definitely a mix. Everybody's in a similar boat of trying to play catch up with ordinances. Spoke to several cities. Those had updated, look similar to what this is. Those that hadn't yet updated know that it's something that they're working on. And I won't name the city, but I made a call to someone just to get some more information and ask. And I said, so can a child ride a scooter on your trails or sidewalks based on your current regulations? And the answer was, I don't actually know. I can't tell from our ordinance. It's really confusing. So they agreed that there were updates that needed to be made and they weren't there yet.
Okay, so that would seem to fall more in line with our Connect Northglenn if we want to make trails consistent across, can I get from Westminster through Northglenn, wherever I'm going?
And I don't remember each city off the top of my head, but when we had that, we had a chart up at one of the previous study sessions, kind of outlined where each of the other communities were at. But this definitely isn't out of line with what we're seeing happen in those other communities.
And the second don't kill me question, I seem to remember that the definition of a toy vehicle isn't what we thought what we're thinking of a toy vehicle. I thought it was like ATVs and motorbikes, so they're not like the toys as we're thinking, like, you know, little ride-along Jeep that, or.
It's a broad
Burt
range.
Mercedes, right? That doesn't fall in that category. That's what I thought.
It does.
It does.
The answer is yes, it's all of it. And that's part, it's such a broad definition that it's everything other than what's identified in here with a separate definition, Frank, would be the way I'd characterize it.
I thought it carried more weight and it was like not clear because it's not clear.
I would, the way I would define it as a toy vehicle is everything that's not specifically defined in here.
That's it. That was my two don't kill me questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Brown?
I'm sorry,
Raise
you
your hand
put
up
me
from
down.
before. Sorry about that. All right.
You're
Well, how about if
forgiven.
we move to a vote?
We'll just move beyond. Well, we still have the public invited to be heard when
Yes,
it
we
goes,
have
and
more.
at the end of the day, if we choose not to go with it, that's probably when it would happen, right?
Well, we'll see. Okay, please open the vote.
Vote is open. I will close that vote, and CB 2008 on first reading passes unanimously.
Resolution CR 76. Joanna, will you read the title, please?
A resolution approving amendment number 3 to the construction manager contract between the City of North Glen and FCI Constructors Incorporated for Phase 2 of the North Glen Civic Center project.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Eric Enzi, our senior planner, is here to provide a summary. Hi, Eric.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'll just go ahead and start by giving a little bit of background here before we actually go into the resolution itself. But City Council did approve what is called an initial guaranteed maximum price for construction of the new City Hall building at the March 20th meeting. The IGMP established the baseline for the construction cost for the new City Hall, and that value was set at $26,494,561. As a reminder, the way we're moving forward with this is that the City Hall project is being broken down into 3 PGMPs, which stands for partial guaranteed maximum prices. The reason for this is to ensure that the project can be constructed in accordance with the contract schedule, as well as the estimated budget for the project. So keeping in mind that there were some things that we had to procure early, and it kind of breaks it out into some phases of development to keep the project going on schedule. These 3 PGMPs combined cannot exceed the IGMP. So that's going to be the next step that we go for. Right, what we're presenting this evening is PGMP number 2. With this agenda item, staff is presenting Council Resolution 76, which would approve amendment number 3 to the city's contract with FCI Constructors, who is the CMGC, the general contractor for this project, for construction of the new City Hall. This amendment would approve, like I said, PGMP number 2. The contract amount in PGMP number 2 is $3,313,109 and would authorize FCI to begin work on grading, site work, and the utilities for construction of the new City Hall. As you may recall, Council did approve PGMP number 1 at the March 20th meeting as well. That authorized FCI to procure those long lead items. There were a number of items that we had talked about that needed to be procured early in order to lock in those costs right at the moment, for fear of escalation if we didn't get those in right away. That PGMP amount was $12,040,618. With authorization of the contract amendment being proposed this evening, a total of $15,446,674 would be allocated towards the construction of the new City Hall building. So the remainder, PGMP number 3, is planned to be brought to you all July 10th meeting and will include the rest of the construction costs associated with City Hall, and that includes the vertical construction of the building itself. Staff is recommending that council approve Council Resolution 76. I'm happy to answer any questions. I do have my experts here this evening as well here, FCI Constructors and CMGI Coming Management Group, who is the city's project administrator, who is also here to answer any questions that you might have.
Councilmember Brown.
So good to see you guys. I'm glad you're doing good. I am having a really hard time wrapping my head around 3 separate processes, right? Do we have a final total at this time that it cannot go above? Or is there still some wiggle that can happen between 2 and 3?
So the way the way the contract with FCI is set up, when we established the IGMP, that established that number. So
Okay.
at this point, 26,494,561 is the budget for the building at this point.
And is it a capped cost? I mean, I know from the other ones that we've done that, sometimes things happen and prices go up. So is that what we feel, is that the number that we're gonna start watching as we start getting funds out and start, furnishing the insides and stuff? Is that the number we can count on, that 26 million?
That's what the project team is working towards right now. Now, keep in mind, with approval of this, we'll have basically 15.5 million of that 26 million procured.
Right.
We believe that we have, in that IGMP cost, estimated escalation, so that we don't get into a point where we're going above that 26.494 million. So we're working towards the premise that we're gonna be below that number.
Okay. I think where I struggle is the fact that we broke it up into 3 this time, and with the inflation scares me. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I would ever vote against anything. I just think that we need to really, everybody, including myself, needs to really understand how this differs from the last projects that we've built, and if we are at any kind of risk on.
And I think there's always a risk, but again, what we did as part of this particular contract was to build in those contingency values based on cost escalation. So we anticipated a lot of that escalation upfront in that IGMP number. So we believe as a team we'll probably be pretty good on this number. We don't believe we'll be coming back asking for any additional monies.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that to me better. I appreciate it.
I'm going to check in with Councilmember Long. You good?
I'm looking at the contingency percentage. What is that rate again that you put in there? If you take 22.49 divided by the difference there, which is what, 31?
So in terms of, I'm assuming you're looking at page 2 of 2 of the staff report where
Yeah, that's correct.
where we're looking at the breakdown of
Yes,
the cost of the project, correct?
Yeah.
So the construction costs, we had budgeted at $26.6 million and a contingency of $2.49 million.
You don't
That's
wanna-
the city's contingencies.
You
So
don't want
keep,
to add the soft costs into that total?
sure, and the soft cost total we have budgeted, or we have right now is 4.69 million, correct?
You add those two together, you're at 31,290?
Yeah, that's about right.
So 2490 as your numerator, and that number as your denominator gives you a percentage of what for your contingency? I didn't do the math.
I did not do the math
7%.
either.
How much?
Are you taking 2.5 divided by 33.7,
No,
33.8?
if you do the whole thing, it's,
Because that's 7%.
I did 7.4 for the whole thing, but that's not what it comes to when I more look at it. Sorry to hold everybody up.
No, fine.
You're fine.
I'm just curious at the,
The quant side.
Yeah, absolutely.
what do
I
you-
don't know.
What do you got?
Just to explain a little bit about this contingency you're seeing here, there is another contingency that's also in FCI's contract. So there's a construction contingency. This is the owner's contingency in case anything
That's
comes
what
up.
I'm getting at. What's their contingency? What's your contingency? What's the architect's contingency, if there's any?
Their contingency is at 3%, FCI's is.
Okay.
I would have to look into the architect off the top of my head. I don't have the contract in front of me, but there is I believe there's some minor contingency in the architect's contract. Do you know what percent that is?
I don't remember percentage, but
About 50,000 is what we believe is in the architect's contract.
Okay, any other questions? for
8%.
Eric? Oh,
It's about
sorry, you're still
8%.
calculating.
8% overall.
Okay.
That's what I'll be watching. FYI.
Yes,
Madam Mayor,
Member
so
Kondo?
is there a concern, Councilmember Long, about whether the contingency percentages, whether it's the owner or the builder, that everybody has the same percentage?
No. What happens is, change orders are gonna happen. That's just the nature of the beast. It's gonna happen. So then you have to decide, okay, is this coming out of your contingency? Is it coming out of our contingency? Is it coming out of your contingency? So then you have these little conversations, and you try to decide as reasonable people, whose contingency piece is. Maybe you share it all. Maybe it's two of the three. Maybe it's the owner because you added something that they hadn't counted on. No one really knows everything. Or in the soils. Maybe you're gonna find some, he's shaking his head, yes. Notorious for our clay that we have around these parts. So I'm just wanting to know what those numbers were, that's all.
That's correct.
And the overall big picture is 8%.
8%.
But everybody has a different gradient within that 8 point.
And the 8% breakdown, again, you're seeing here is just the owner's contingency.
Oh, that's just the owner?
That's just the owner's contingency. There's another 3% contingency built into FCI's contract, and we believe about 50,000 in the design contract, in Anderson Mason Dales.
In the architect.
Yep.
Okay.
So there's those
This isn't gonna be-
contingencies.
Was that added to this then? Their contingency is an add-on to this number?
Their contingency
3%?
is included in their construction costs, which we have initiated, the IGMP is part of, those contingencies are included as part of the IGMP cost. And they're taken into account, if I'm not mistaken, in their overall.
And it all coalesces into that 33,780. Correct?
Correct.
Correct.
In my mind, I just saw it added.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yes.
Can I add something that may be of benefit to council? Starting in late July, after the project really gets underway, work is already started, we will provide monthly reports, typically the fourth meeting of every month, where we provide detailed information on what change orders have occurred, and you can follow the money throughout the project. So that's a approach that we've used consistently from Justice Center forward. It helps provide that monthly transparency component that's very important to many residents as well as council members. And so that piece will start in late July. But we've got these next couple of pieces to get through before we can get to that piece.
If I may? Our quasi part-time project manager, the guy to rely on. Besides, you have another outside help, you can't do it all, right? Is that what I'm given to understand?
Correct.
Are you the one producing these reports?
There'll be a team of us working on these reports. That would be myself and Mike Roman. Mike Roman is in the Public Works Department. He's one of our senior engineers. So him and myself are kind of co-project managers on this. Cumming Management Group is who we rely on as our program administrator. So they're the city's representative on this project. They'll be assisting us in budgeting, in reviewing all these change orders that come through, all of the different steps of the construction process. So they're kind of our help, as you may say, as well as Jason Loveland, who is our finance director / interim deputy city manager. So it'll be a team of us kind of pulling those monthly reports together.
For my other people on the dais, I feel great comfort in knowing this, just what he said. You've got many eyes looking at it objectively, And I'm sure these erstwhile folks are going to do a great job for us too. So I'm just, again, having been on the worst-case scenario on a couple of projects, I just always hearken to that. But I do see equanimity here, so
I do believe we have a really good team on this
I
project.
think you do too. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Please open the vote.
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I will close that vote, and CR 76 passes unanimously.
Great. CR 77. Joanna, will you read the title, please?
A resolution approving change order number 2 to the professional services agreement between the City of North Glen and Velocity Constructors Incorporated for the Bull Reservoir Pump Station Replacement Project.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Hello. Kent Kisselman is here.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Thanks for having us. So the Bull Reservoir project is up at the wastewater plant, and that's our big reservoir that holds the water. This project has been contemplated, well, the pumps kind of failed back about 5 years ago, and so we've been working towards this ever since that time. So we had the contract with Velocity in late 2021, and we've been working towards that. If you can imagine, these are what we generally use to get rid of the water out of Bull Reservoir. So we have 3 big pumps that pump a lot of water at a lot of time, and we have little pumps that pump a little water sometimes. The little pumps are kind of the ones that our environmental team uses the most to augment the water. So they're kind of the most important, even though we have to have the big pumps for those large occasions. So this change order number 2 is for the little pumps. There's these pumps sit on top of the ground and you can see them, and then they go down, 27 feet into a hole, and there was a shaft, and we've, in this process, we've removed the shaft and put in new pumps and everything. But the little pumps, we need down there at the level when Bull isn't full, so we can grab that little bit of water and still meet our augmentation requirements. So through the process, even in discovery and plans, this wasn't something you could get down there. We did send a diver down during the design process, but, just as they got into it, these were the kind of the bits and pieces that we found that we needed, so. Pardon me. So change order number 2 is for $26,569 for these additional electrical pieces and the 2 little pumps. And staff recommends approval of this resolution as presented, and I'll answer any questions if I can.
Thank you. Councilmember Condo.
So just for my mental picture, you're saying that these pumps sit at the bottom of some sort of caisson, so that water level, if Bull Reservoir drops, it's still providing positive head for the
Yeah,
small pumps?
something, it'd be similar to you're Navy, so, these big pumps sit on top, and there's a big shaft that goes down and can suck all the water out and pump it out at a big time. But we need the little pumps that are down there at the bottom of the shaft, so we can just pull a little bit of water to meet our augmentation requirements, kind of on a more consistent basis.
Okay. And so these smaller pumps, is there regular maintenance that's being done, or are they sealed? How do
They'll be down.
last being in a
They're gonna
somewhat?
be on a, kind of like, I believe, like an elevator thing, or a slide or something, where we'll be able to pull those out and service those.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry, the geeky engineer came out. But at least I'm comforted knowing that there's accessibility and it's gonna be easy, as opposed to having somebody climb down into a shaft trying to fix something, because that could really blow. I'm not gonna say any, I know you said that I said a curse word one time, so I'm gonna be polite.
Not me.
I did. Yeah, I own it.
I'm just gonna make a
Councilmember Long.
anecdotal observation. I mean, how can you go wrong with somebody's name Velocity? Come on. I mean, that's
They're actually a local North Glen firm. so
that's wonderful.
We're really pleased with their work.
That's great.
and They've done several projects for us, and they do great work, so, we're happy with them.
Thanks. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. I will close that vote, and CR 77 passes unanimously.
Okay, before you scooch, thank you, Kent, and congratulations again.
Yes, congratulations.
Oh, you have one more, sorry. CR 78. We'll applaud again on your way out the door. Joanna, will you read the title, please?
A resolution approving addendum number 1 to the agreement between the City of Northland and Brannan Sand and Gravel Company LLC for the 2023 Residential Streets Program.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, Kent, what do you got?
So again, this is the time where, we had the PCI presentation back in, was it May? I had it here, sorry. March 20th, we did the presentation of the PCI, and our PCI is at 67. So this is bringing forth the amount of streets that we can do for the money that we budgeted. Just some kind of additional information. We have 116 lane miles, and if that number sounds a little different than the past, it used to be 103. So with the additional of Carl's Farm, and we've accepted those roads, we're kind of gaining a little bit, which is good. So 60 miles of that 116 have a PCI less than 67, which is about 51% for Councilmember Long and Councilmember Kondo.
Well done.
10 miles. 10 of those miles. 10 of those miles are rated at poor or very poor, which is pretty darn good for our system. So we're doing pretty good. And if anybody wants to go back into that PCI report, I believe it was on page 7, there was a nice graphic, and I don't know that everybody could see it, but showed like each rating of what the percentages of our roads were in. So today, we are asking Brannan, we had a contract with Brannan last year, and we liked their work so much. I mean, they did a great job out here at Community Center Drive and EB Rains and our parking lot. So we have kind of one-ups with them for the next 5 years. And so this is addendum number 1, not a new contract. So as soon as we approve this, then we'll get with them and we'll be ready to go, and we'll get a schedule, and we'll get you that information of when we'll get going. The streets are listed in the sheet. If anybody is interested in that, does somebody want me to say all the streets for the public, or?
Is it?
John Isel is going to be publishing a very nice map here in the next couple days that shows, I'll kind of just give you a preview. So it kind of shows all the little areas that you see on your map with an enlargement that shows what the name of that street is and where it goes, what the segment is from. So, for example, 114th Place, Larson to Clarkston, Carlisle Street from 114th Place to 115th Avenue. So all that information will be on the city website here in the next couple days.
Okay.
So Brannan this contract is for, with contingency, and the contingency is 10%, $924,858.19. And then there's the roads listed, and then also we hold back $100,000 for crack sealing. So again, crack sealing is a great treatment for those roads that are 75 and above to maintain that level. And so our street crew is really focused more now on the parking lots and maintaining our own facilities. And a professional like Brannan can just do so much quantity so much faster than we could ever do with our street crew. So for the last couple of years, we've included that in our budget. Lastly, I guess, $950,000, and we talked about this at our strategic planning. This will not be enough to maintain our PCI of 67, but if you think about this year, the other roads that we're doing, and I'll just mention those, just for the public, just doesn't think that we're not doing what we should be. Huron's going to be coming up here in the next 30 days to be paved. That was a huge project, ARPA funded, 120th at the end of the year. If you go by 112th, currently from Huron all the way to Federal, and a big portion of that is ours. You contributed $650,000 towards that project. So that's going to be, sidewalk in places, new mill and overlay, and bike lanes all the way to Huron. So we have those large projects that are outside that are going to assist with maintaining our PCI of 67 in 2023. So we're in good shape. Staff recommends approval of this resolution, and I'll answer any questions.
All right, please open the vote.
Look how easy that was.
That was an easy.
Please vote.
As long as Excel doesn't come right behind them and tear up the streets, I'll be happy.
Right.
I'll close that vote, and CR 78 passes unanimously.
Okay, now we'll clap for you again. All right, CR 79. Joanna, will you read the title, please?
A resolution amending the City of Northland 2023 Personnel Summary.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Oh, it looks like we have Chief and Deputy Chief coming on up. Deputy Chief Randall Darlin will provide the summary. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So in this presentation for the Personnel Summary Amendment, I provided a lot of information in the packet on this one. So I'll kind of give you the highlights of what's going on, and then I can answer any questions you might have. A few years ago, during the Barry Dunn assessment, there was a reorganization kind of requested at that time. The department followed through with that reorganization. It brought in some middle management positions in the lieutenants, and it provided a good span of control process for us. But what we have found over the last 2 years is that it really spread thin, the command structure and the amount of work and the amount of responsibility that the commanders had in those roles. And the duties and responsibilities kind of reallocated and realigned and took what were similar roles within each division and kind of broadened them to the point where they were controlling a lot of different roles and a lot of different things under their span of control. So what we did with this is we reorganized it took what was 4 divisions that under Barry Dunn was removed down to 2 divisions, and we've brought that back out to what would be 3 divisions, to leave a commander in charge of the 3 divisions. And really, most importantly, what it did is it really identified the professional standards piece of this into its own specific division to really hold accountable and to get a consistent process through IA, through training, through development, through our accounting and our auditing parameters within the agency. So the role that we really looked at here was to take that process that we've seen, which did a good job reorganizing, gave us some middle management, gave great span of control, but provided us with just a little too much responsibility on the role of just 2 commanders, broaden that back out into 3 command positions, really bringing forth a real focus on the professional standards piece and balancing that workload between 3 commanders rather than 2. And that would be what we're asking for tonight, is basically to really reorganize that process. We're gonna reclassify 1 lieutenant position to a command position, so cost-wise, much more effective than if we were to try to bring another commander into the organization. The 2 remaining commanders will remain in patrol division, because that is where the biggest liability, responsibility lies within the agency. We want to make sure we keep that span of control and we manage that effectively and efficiently, keeps lieutenants on both sides of the week with the personnel. So we really keep a good middle management piece. There still provides that development through the organization that we were looking for in that earlier modification, and it really provides for us that restructure that gives us just that right balanced approach to what we're looking for as we move forward. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
I'm going to jump in. So I love a good table or some sort of visual, because I'm having a hard time, when I read the memo, I'm having a hard time visualizing the changes. So did you just say that 2 commanders will work the patrol division?
No, so he meant 2 lieutenants.
2 lieutenants. Did I say commanders?
Yeah, you did.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
When I saw that, I was like, oh.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's 2 lieutenants remain in the patrol division. The 2 remaining lieutenants, because we're going to reclassify 1 to a commander, the 2 remaining would remain in patrol because it is the biggest division. It handles the majority of our officers. It's the biggest liability on the city. It's our youngest members. We want control on both sides of the week, and that's why they'll stay in that section.
So another thing too, the current is a support commander and a patrol commander. And some of those other duties that were identified in the assessment we just went through, it was like ad hoc duties. So we wanted to really put a focus on those priorities that came out in that assessment by making that professional standards. That's their primary duties to get that. So that's that accountability piece. That's that making sure that we're, hitting those, goals in our strategic plan. I think this is the structure that is really needed to making sure we get to that point. What happens from this with the 2 lieutenants in patrol, that really balance out because that's our largest department within the police department or unit. So we just want to make sure that we have 2 lieutenants there for that span of control. Right after this, like I said, that 10-hour, going from 12 hours to 10 hours is super important. So still we're on par, hopefully mid-July, we'll get to that. And then those backfill positions for the lieutenants or for the lieutenant position and the sergeant position will occur in August and then October. So then we should have all that supervision taken care of and then pushing forward for the new year, trying to get more officers on board.
Okay, so there is no need to have lieutenants over support or professional standards.
So under the process we have now, there will not be lieutenants under those positions. Definitely feel that under this structure, those commanders can manage that role because there are fewer officers in those roles. There is less of a span of control, fewer detectives, right, that need to be managed, fewer responsibilities. I know when you look at the numbers of like kind of units within them, they're very balanced, right? But as far as the officers that are assigned to those roles or the civilians that they're overseeing, there's fewer in those other 2 divisions. So the span of control is really good with just a commander managing it, but the accountability is very direct, right? It goes to the commander. When you had a lieutenant in the other division, that accountability was a little, you can't just say, okay, lieutenant, you're in charge of IAs and internal affairs when there's a commander above them that's really in charge of internal affairs and in charge of those. So the span of control is a little tighter with those other 2 divisions because they're smaller. And a commander without a lieutenant is perfectly fine.
I have to tell you, I'm looking at page 4. I mean, to break down the work into those 3 very large categories, that's heavy work. Like that's incredible, to be honest. So, I mean, I can tell you guys really thought about it now that I had that clarification. Thank you. Councilmember Kondo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm a visual kind of guy, so I like to see an org chart, but I'm just curious, anecdotally, how many reports for each commander? Just so, when you
So
talk about
Patrol
span of
Division has the
control.
most reports. They'd have 6 direct sergeants, right?
Okay.
Support Division would have 2, and Professional Standards would have 2 direct sergeants. Once an IA sergeant, which is part of the budget package for 2024, that would be a 2 direct sergeant reports, and then all of the civilian staff. The Support Division has several civilian supervisors that report to them, and that is the advocates and records supervisors. So those are civilian supervisors, and they also direct report to that position. So there's several within there. And then the Professional Standards will have 2, the training sergeant, which is a huge role within our organization, and then the IA sergeant as well, which holds a culpability piece that's also involves policy as well.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Please open the
I have,
vote. Oh, go ahead, Councilmember
2
Long.
questions. Yep. First off, communication. How will you share this with the rank and file? What's your plan on going forward?
So if this is passed tonight, then we'll move to Chief and I drafting something for them to go out to them in the next few days. And then we have a full review with our staff on the 31st. It'll also be communicated there in person and
That's what I wanted to hear.
I can tell you the other informal line of communication will probably go out a lot
Yeah,
sooner.
sits behind us. Yeah,
That's real.
yes, yes.
And then if I might, in all fairness, I'd like our city manager just to add a couple thoughts, if you have them.
About what specifically?
This, I'm sure you've been working with these gentlemen.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's an important step to take. You know, I think, as you've heard me say, my goal is to make sure Chief has his A-team on command staff. And so making this strategic move, I think, is important. Going back to what's been already said in terms of page 4 of the memo, when you look at the breakdown of responsibilities, there are significant pieces. And having been not only a customer in terms of working with past commanders in terms of flow of information, getting things into the council packet, I am hopeful and believe that this approach will work by shifting and creating that professional standards unit. I also do believe that it will address many of the pieces of the workplace assessment. The next ask that we will have coming forward to council as part of 2024 budget is the IA sergeant position and the digital technician, the second digital technician position, which is very important. So those would be the two priorities in my mind moving into 2024 budget. So I always go into this type of work, though, with a mindset that we see how it works, and if we need to make adjustments, we'll make adjustments. So if they at some point get down the road and say, okay, 2 lieutenants in patrol is not enough, or we need a lieutenant over here, or an additional sergeant over here, the staffing plan is a plan, but assessing it continually, and then them asking for what they need, and then collectively we ask council for what we need. That's the key.
Thank you.
Okay, please open the vote.
Vote is open. We'll close that vote, and CR 79 passes unanimously.
Okay, CR 80. Joanna, will you read the title, please?
A resolution adopting an amended policy for naming and renaming parks and recreation facilities.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, Amanda Peterson is back. Hello.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. So this amendment to our park naming policy includes 3 primary changes per the study session that we had on April 17th. So those 3 items are: 1, inclusion of a minimum requirements to occur during the existing 90-day evaluation period that exists once we receive a naming proposal. So during that right now, the current resolution simply states that there is a 90-day waiting period. This would say that during that 90-day waiting period, we include the item on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board agenda each of those months, and specifically states that we will provide opportunity for public comment. The second item is the inclusion of a option for a call for names to be initiated by the city. Previously, it was implied that that was a self-initiated request that could be brought forward to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. This allows for us to put a call for names out if we have a specific space that we know is coming up for a name. And then the third change is the allowance for staff level approval for wayfinding purposes, like pavilions or classrooms, things that we have done, but technically the current policy didn't specifically allow for. So those are the 3 modifications that we're bringing forward for you tonight. If you have any questions, I'm happy to respond to those.
Thanks, Councilmember Goff.
Thank you, Amanda. So my question is, I know when we talked about this before, you brought up that we have several parks that have kind of generic names. So I guess I'm kind of wondering about this process. Is this something that, like a resident could say, I want to make a proposal to rename this park, or are we holding those aside for something in particular?
They can per the current policy as well as per the new policy.
And,
The
I
new
mean,
policy simply allows us, if we had a park that's either not named, or has a wayfinding name, if you as council said, hey, North Park, Central Park, and South Park just aren't quite doing it for us in Foxtrot, and we would like to see those have more meaningful names. It would allow, the only thing it changes is allowing us to put a call for names out and some timelines on that, rather than that just being self-initiated,
That's
as
kind
it
of what I was
currently
getting at,
stands.
if we, as a council, could decide we wanted to ask for suggestions or something.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
It would
thank
still
you.
go through the Parks Board process and then back to you, but you could initiate that.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, I've kind
Yeah,
of,
Councilmember Brown?
I've shrunk my screen up and couldn't find my happy face.
That's okay.
Thank you very much for taking the time to get this all spelled out, and I really do appreciate it.
You are welcome.
It's a great document. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you to the city clerk for making sure that all of the things that I put in the memo magically appeared in the amended resolution.
Have the best of the best.
Please open the vote.
Vote is open.
Please vote.
We'll close that vote, and CR 80 passes unanimously.
Okay, public invited to be heard. An opportunity for public comment, but there is no one present, so we are done. There being no further business, we are adjourned.